6 different studies have said this is entirely doable.
Very questionable. Some of them are blogs. Some of them are from the AEI, which is hardly an independent group. Those are not.
These are very credible sources. And
one of them is from a guy who is a blog from a guy who was a top advisor to George W. Bush. These are hardly nonpartisan studies.
See how Ed Gillespie doesn't look all that worried there? He's like waiting for the interviewer to stop talking, right? He's just kind of waiting. I'm just going to go back to my talking points as soon as you're done. There is a certain happy-go-luckiness by the Republicans when they are talking about this issue. They do not get too stressed out about this issue because they know that politically it really doesn't matter what they say. They trust that no matter what they are proposing and how it gets debunked or fact-checked or whatever, they know politically they will just seem like they're going to be good on the deficit, no matter what they propose. This is the most persistent myth in the modern politics of American money. This idea that Republican presidents in particular, are good on the deficit, when in fact the exact opposite is our modern history. On Friday, we learned, for example, that the U.S. budget deficit topped $1 trillion for the 4th year in a row. And while that is a ginormous number, here's the context for that. Here's our budget deficit in 2012, just over $1 trillion. And here's what it was last year. President Obama actually cut the deficit by more than $200 billion from the year before. Here's the budget deficit that President Obama was handed when he walked in the door. Your eyes are not deceiving you. You keep hearing the Republicans talk about how much President Obama has increased the deficit. President Obama has cut the deficit during his 4 years in office. The great Steve Bennin put this graph together at Maddow blog today, going through the raw data. And as Steve notes today, quote, over the last 4 decades, only 2 presidents have reduced the deficit this much, this quickly. And those 2 presidents are Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. Now, what do they have in common? Both Democrats. Historically, the Democratic Party has actually been the better of the 2 parties when it comes to the deficit. Over the last 40 years, it's Democratic presidents who have been the most fiscally responsible when it comes to the deficit. And it's Republican presidents who have been the most fiscally reckless. Somehow, in the face of this persistent history, Republicans have successfully cultivated this myth that they're the ones you should trust if you're worried about the debt and the deficit. And so even though voters trust Barack Obama on every other issue, they still, inexplicably, trust Mitt Romney more when it comes to the deficit. They have great faith in Mitt Romney's deficit hawkishness, even if all his 6 studies are just stuff written on a bathroom wall. And it's hilarious. I mean, it's factually hilarious, given that Mitt Romney really is proposing this in terms of what we spend on the military. You ready? These are our current levels of military spending, our biggest discretionary spending. That is what Mitt Romney is proposing to do to our biggest pile of discretionary spending. He is proposing adding $2 trillion extra dollars in spending just on the military, and he is proposing bringing in $5 trillion fewer dollars in revenue in order to pay for that. Barack Obama is right. The math does not work. The math might be boring, but the math does not work. This is like if you're living paycheck to paycheck right now, and you decide you're going to quit your job and then buy a new car at the same time. So you have less money coming in and lots more money going out. What does that make you? It makes you psyched because you got a new car and you don't have to work. Plenty of time to drive it around until it runs out of gas, and then what? But a decision like this, less money coming in, lots more money going out, a decision like that puts you in deep, deep, deep debt.